Hey everybody, today I want to talk about aquarium heaters. I recently had two of them fail, and they both failed in the on position. And I long ago started buying heaters that were just barely big enough to get the job done in my aquariums. And I know that goes against conventional wisdom within the hobby, but I believe that my way of doing it actually makes more sense. And I'm here to actually challenge that conventional wisdom within the hobby. So, conventional wisdom states that whenever you've got an aquarium heater, you want to get sort of an oversized heater. You want to get one that's big enough to very easily and adequately heat your aquarium. And the argument behind that is that you want to get a heater that does not have to work very hard in order to get the tank heated up, because that will prolong the life of the heater. This heater working really hard is what wears them out and burns them out and has them fail and so on and so forth. So if you get a heater that really doesn't have to work hard to heat your tank up, then that's going to last you a lot longer. And if you don't give that too much thought, that kind of sounds like it makes sense. But when you really start breaking down what's going on, it actually doesn't make any sense. So first of all, the reason I think that a heater that just barely is enough to get the job done is your safer bet is because I've had many times over the years aquarium heaters fail in the on position. And when they do that, if you've got a nice big hefty heater that can easily warm your tank up, you wind up with fish soup. If you've got a heater that really struggles to get that temperature way up there, then worst case, it's going to bring your tank temperature up to uncomfortably warm, but it's not ever going to get it to the point where it's too warm. And that's what happened in the last two scenarios when my heaters failed. I noticed it because I did a water change and I noticed it was like bath water. And when I tried turning the heater down, it didn't go off. It just kept trying to heat the tank warmer than that. And because the heater wasn't able to really push it beyond that 85 degrees or whatever, my fish all survived and everything was fine. If I had a 200 watt heater or a 300 watt heater in the same tank, I would have had fish soup. They all would have been dead. But because that heater was just barely enough to get the tank up to about 85, I'm going to guess maybe 87 degrees. Again, it was pretty warm, but there was an air stone in the tank and none of the fish died because the heater stuck on, and that was because I had a heater that was just big enough to get that tank up to good warm tropical temperatures and not over that. So that's my reason for wanting to do it. But what about the logic behind, well, if you use this heater that has to work really hard to keep your, isn't it going to more likely to fail? Aren't you kind of shooting yourself in the foot here? You're going to make the heater fail faster by using this underpowered heater. But that's where I question the wisdom of these, more powerful heaters lasting longer because they don't have to work as hard. I think it actually is the other way around. First of all, let's think about what actually fails in the heater when they fail. It's not the heating element. First of all, your average heating element in something like a hair dryer or a space heater, those heating elements get to like glowing orange temperatures and then cool back down regularly. So resistance coils and heat coils can get really, really hot and cool and hot and cold and hot and cold a lot of times without failing. They're big, thick pieces of metal. The heating coils that are in the aquarium heaters that we use are underwater, and they never get anywhere near those kind of temperatures. They just get warm. If you've ever touched your aquarium heater while it's in the tank running, it might be hot to the touch, but you can touch it. It doesn't take skin off your hands. It's not glowing orange metal. So those heating elements are not working hard at all. There's not a lot going on in those heating elements. That's not what fails. What fails is the switch. It's always the switching mechanism, whether you've got a digital switch or there's a mechanical switch. Whenever you've got electrical contacts opening and closing, that's going to be your failure point. Electrons are crossing that. It's carrying pieces of metal. Sometimes they weld close. Sometimes they just lose metal on the surfaces and they don't make proper contact anymore. The switching is where you have failures. Again, it either fails off and it just doesn't work anymore, or it fails on and it just keeps that circuit open and it just keeps running more and more juice through it, getting it hotter and hotter and hotter, or as hot as it's capable of getting it, which again is where that sort of smaller unit comes into play. So when we talk about these heaters failing, it's not the coils that fail, it's the switch that fails. It's the on-off switch. So now let's think about the difference between a small heater that has to work hard versus a larger heater that doesn't have to work very hard. What is the hard work that's being done here? It's not the amount of electricity that's flowing through the heater. You're not saving any money by using a bigger heater. You're going to use the exact same amount of energy to heat up the exact same amount of water. It's a finite amount of energy to heat X amount of water to X amount of temperature. Requires a certain amount of energy. If you've got a great big heater, you can do that very quickly, but you're still going to impart the same amount of energy into that water. If you've got a smaller heater, it'll take you longer to do that, but you'll be putting a smaller amount in over a longer period of time, and in the end result, your electricity bill is going to be exactly the same. You're not saving electricity by using a larger heater, and you're not saving electricity by using a smaller heater. That's got nothing to do with it either. So using a bigger heater that doesn't have to work as hard, it's not saving you money on electricity because it's not, cycling on and off as frequently. So we're not really saving any money. We've already established that while the heater is actually on and running and just the electricity is flowing through those heating elements, that's not really doing anything to the unit. It's the coming on and turning off. It's the duty cycles that kill it. It's the times it comes on and turns off that kills it. So if you've got a big, powerful heater that can heat your tank up really quickly, it's still going to cool down at the same rate no matter what kind of heater you've got in there. So let's look at a scenario where you've got a tank that takes 15 minutes to cool down before the heater comes on and has to warm it back up. Now, if you've got a big, powerful heater, takes 15 minutes to cool down, that big powerful heater comes back on, and in 5 minutes it's got the tank warm and it shuts off again. So that whole cycle took 20 minutes. Now it's going to take 15 minutes to cool down, 5 minutes to warm back up, and then it's going to shut off again. So every 20 minutes you're going to have a duty cycle. That's 3 on-off cycles every hour. If you've got a smaller aquarium heater that has to work harder, which again is not harder, it's just longer, you're going to be in the same scenario. It's going to be that same 15 minutes to cool down, but now when the heater comes on, that heater might run for 15 minutes instead of 5. And now it shuts off after 15 minutes. It takes another 15 minutes to cool down, and then it runs for 15 minutes. So now you're doing half-hour cycles, and you're only running it through 2 duty cycles every hour. So the fact that the aquarium heater stays on longer is actually preserving the lifespan of the unit, because it's the on-off cycles that kill it. It's that switch that kills it. So the heater coming on and staying on longer is actually making the heater last longer. Your big, powerful heater that comes on, gets the tank really nice and warm, and then shuts back off, that's coming on and going off far more frequently than a heater that comes on and has to stay on for long periods of time to slowly bring the tank up to temperature and then shuts off again. That's not what's hurting it. It's the on and off that's hurting it. So I have no way of proving this out other than setting up a bunch of tanks and doing hundreds of heaters, because doing a couple of samples isn't going to be enough of a sample size to tell us anything. And I obviously don't have the time, money, or space to do any of these kinds of setups. But I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts are on this, because I think that that's where you're going to have your problem, is the on-off cycles. And the more rapidly that thing is coming on and off, the more frequently it's going to fail. So these smaller heaters not only offer you the safeguard of they're never going to really have the chance to overheat your tank if they fail on, but they're also going to last longer because they're not coming on and turning off so frequently, and they don't wear their own switches out. So again, I'd like to hear your comments or thoughts down below. It's an interesting topic. Again, none of us are going to be able to prove out one way or the other, so it's all going to be a matter of our own personal way of doing it and our own opinions of how this works. But I'd be interested to hear yours, so leave a comment below. Make sure you're subscribed. You never know what you're going to get with me. Thanks for watching this one, and I'll see you real soon in the next one.